Hey, it's CDA and welcome to episode 11 of this Super Proliferation run. And we fixed all our power in the last episode, which is really nice. And now we have a new problem because of course that is how this game works. The problem is very simple. If you look at the total amount of resources we have in our system, we only have 1.7 million silicon left. Now don't get me wrong, 1.7 million silicon is a lot, but this will be the first thing to run out. And yeah, we have a larger problem than it might seem at first glance because, let me show you, 700,000 of it is under our mall, and I really do not want to take this mall down. So that basically means that we have about 400,000 silicon on this planet and something similar along those lines. I think on Reddington, it's not much. Yep, how about 500,000 as well, which we actually managed to run an entire patch off completely out already. So yeah, silicon is going to be a problem. Now, what are we going to do about that? Very simple. We are going to make sure that we don't have to rely only on the resources in our system. And in order to fix that issue, we are going to need two things. Well, actually, we technically only need one thing. We need purple science to be unlocked. Or technically we could already start warping around because we have the Graviton lens already unlocked, so we can actually make warpers. However, the problem with that is that we can't actually have our vessels warp themselves, because in order to do that, they are going to need, let me see, where is it? Not here, not here. Something around here. We are going to need purple science. So if we have purple science and we are able to create some warpers, we can actually start warping around the universe and we have more resources than we can ever use. So, step one, purple science. And in order to unlock purple science, what do we need? Well, two things. We need processors. We already have those, and by now I think we have a supply of 10,000 of them, which is part of the reason that we're running low on silicon, because of course these are produced making silicon, making use of silicon. But the other item that we don't currently have just yet is the particle broadband. And look, it needs more silicon, so it's a good thing that we are starting to focus a little bit on our research just to make sure that we don't run out of silicon before we can actually warp around. Now, a few things about these builds that I'm going to make now, because this requires a few items, specifically nanotubes and crystal silicon, that actually also have a rare recipe. We currently can't make the rare recipe, but I really don't want to waste these rare recipes. Now we can actually use them in this run. Last run we were going for the achievement to get to the end without rares, but we are not doing that right now, so we might as well make sure that we are treating this as a raw product, in the sense that if we ever need crystal silicon, we are going to be producing it elsewhere and then shipping it to wherever it is needed. Same thing for nanotubes. In nanotubes can be made the old-fashioned way, which we are currently doing. We have a blueprint for that, so all we need to do, if we want more, stamp it down. But we can also make it from a rare resource. So in order to do that and allow for that, we are going to also treat that as a raw resource, which basically reduces this recipe for particle broadband to a very simple recipe that only needs plastic. So, yeah, that is actually pretty straightforward, isn't it? So let's go and find a nice spot to build that. Alright, so let's see, this is as good a place as any, and we are going to be making this build on the fly, so wish me luck there. Yeah, let's start on ILS. We need some room for proliferation purposes, so let's make sure we measure that out, something like this, and then we'll start building over here. Now, this is actually going to be a little bit of a special build, I would say. Maybe not that special, but we might want to replace the ILS later on. But we are going to need 40 assemblers making these. I want to be making 6 per second. These are going to be producing slightly more than 6.25 to be exact. Why 6.25? Because I wanted a round number on the assemblers, and this will give us a round number. Now, remember, we need 3 inputs. That means that we cannot share belts between these lines of assemblers, or there will be multiple lines of assemblers and they can't share belts. So there's 2 solutions to that. We either make a very long build, which I don't like, or we make sure we are a little bit creative with our belts. Now, creative in what way? What you can actually do is the following. You will have 1 belt, 2 belts, and 3 belts of inputs, and we are going to wrap those around like this. And the same thing here. And yes, this is going to make sense in a moment. Don't worry. And then we are going to be placing assemblers down here. Another row of 10. Are these aligned? That looks off. Yeah, that's off. Never mind, never mind. Let's make sure we put them in the right position this time around. There we go. And now we will have outgoing belts on the outside of these facilities. So we have an outgoing belt over here. And similarly, we will have an outgoing belt over here. And we are going to be removing this one. And then we can actually place a row of assemblers over here. Like this. They can share the outgoing belt, since there's only one sorter going all the way there. And then these belts are going to go, assuming we don't have stuff in the way, like this. And let's delete that one. And then once again, we bring this one down. We move this one up. And then this one, we will bring it also all the way around. And then once more with feeling. There we go. Something like that. And once again, like this. And then once again, like that. And then we need a final row of assemblers. Let me check if it's in the correct position the first time around. This time, there we go. And then of course we are going to need an outgoing belt once more, like that. Now, the good thing about all these outgoing belts is that we can make sure we reposition this thing a little bit. Yup. Because of course that does need to be in the middle. Let's make sure we place our spray coater before we do that, and I like to leave a little bit of room just in case. It's probably not needed in this case because we don't have that many sorters on this belt, but better safe than sorry. There we go, now it's in the middle. And we have one more incoming belt over here that we can connect like this. And then the last one can go like... Did I do it to the inner one? Yes, I did. Do I want to do it to the inner one though? No, I actually don't. So I'm gonna remove this one as well. You might be wondering, what does that matter? Well, we also are going to be taking the proliferation from this side. So we are going to make sure this is aligned. Actually going to flip this around as well, because that way we can have the proliferation belt not overlapping any of our other belts. Let's make sure it's on this line again to avoid clipping. And this... Oh no, not over there. There. Something like this. Oh wow, that's not a lot of power I have going on over there. Let's make sure we charge while we do that, and we are going to be needing a belt to fix our proliferation going, and that belt will be coming out from over here. No, not from over there. So actually I could have done it to the inner one. Well, it's never too late to change your mind. Because then we can actually do it something like this. We'll move it up. And flip it around and be ready to continue it on somewhere over there. There we go. Alright, now let me go find some graphite and let's not get stuck on the spray coater and recharge a little bit, and then we'll finish the other half of the build. Okay, so far so good. I think this looks pretty neat and organized. It's a new type of zigzagging build. And one thing I want to try out in this build is actually placing the ILS kind of in the middle of all of this. Now, not entirely in the middle, because we do need, once again, to leave room for proliferation. I think this should be aligned to the middle, exactly on the same line as the other one, which is just a very nice look. And then we are going to have 2 outgoing belts over here. So, no, that one. There we go. One for the nanotubes and one for the silicon. And then we are going to be producing the plastic somewhere else in this build. And in order to do that, we are going to need some graphite as well as plastic production. And the plastic is made from the graphite, so let's start out with that one. We can probably place that on the belt over here, something like this. We are going to need 7 of them, so let's put it a line like this, and that is actually going to be just misaligned with the other ones, with the assembler. So I do want to start on the same height as the other ones, so something like this should work. Right, yeah, that should work. Okay, so we are going to have coal going out over here. And I'm going to mark that up so we don't forget. This is the coal. That means we'll have graphite coming out over here, which needs to be proliferated at some point. We are also going to be bringing out... Actually, let's think about that for a moment. Can we actually fit in a proliferator over here? Yes, we can. So that also means if we flip this belt around and we start from the other side, we should be able to do something like this. There we go. And then if we take these chemical plants, and we do need to make sure we start them out not too close. Maybe one edge up. Is that going to work? How many rows of these are we going to need? Let's see. I am not entirely convinced yet we want to do what I just said and bring it out from the other side, so let's assume for a moment this is coming in from this angle, and this is... we can probably do that. So this is coming in from that angle as well. And we are going to have 3 of them and properly aligned, of course. And there we go. And then we should have an outgoing belt. This will supply these 2, yes. Let's have the outgoing belt over there for a moment. And then 1, 2, 3. And we also should have an outgoing belt over here. And then we need to get rid of this for a moment. And we are also going to have an incoming belt over here. And another incoming belt over here. And then 3 more. Almost perfect, almost perfect. With an outgoing belt. I think in this direction. Something like that. And the reason I'm doing it like this, I like to keep my builds as square as possible, because if you have this side being very long because of all the chemical plants and this side being nice and square, that's just gonna be very annoying if you try to place down multiple of them. But if we do it like this, I think it should work out just fine. Now I do need to fiddle around a little bit with the belts. And once again, I did warn you, this is an on-the-fly build. So how are we exactly going to do that, dear TDA? Well, we are going to have to bring in oil from somewhere, and this is the belt with the graphite. So the oil needs to go in 2 places. And yeah, the only downside is that we don't really have this in the middle, but that's not the biggest problem in the world. So let's see. Let's see, how should we do this? We probably can't avoid kind of making a hop somewhere along this line. Although we could... Actually, no, I think we can avoid that. So let's see. Let's have the... Oh, this is pushing it though. We can put in the proliferator over here, but if we just move everything out with 1 square... So we can actually do that. Okay, so hold on. Bye-bye. Let's move this a little bit more close to the middle. Is it still aligned? Yes, it is. Okay, so that should give us the few spaces that we needed to get this to work. Okay, so cool. Outgoing belt of graphite that is going to go back like this. Hello, autosave. There we go. And if you're wondering why haven't you turned off the autosave, well, builds sometimes disappear. Not kidding, they do. Let's remove this one. Let's make sure this one goes something like that. And this goes something like that. Now, of course, I had this in mind the complete opposite way initially, so we need to bring this around like that. And that does mean that we still need to proliferate along this line somewhere, which we can do. Because we are simply going to do that like this, and then we can actually move these proliferators a little bit to the side. There. There. And there. And then yeah, we can actually move this belt a little as well, so we don't run into any issues with proliferation not being on the same line. It is on this line, so we want to place this over there. And okay, so I hope you could still follow along with that. Oh, we're actually not completely done, so hold on. This is the outgoing belt with a little bit of plastic, which is going to go around over here. And I already took into account this was going to go in the opposite direction. And then we have to have this middle belt going like this into the system as well. And this is the very ugly T thing once again. So let's replace this with a nice little sorter, not sorter, splitter, or in this case combiner, I would say. Really? How hard is it to connect stuff when it's under a building? Okay, so let me walk you through that, because I imagine that reading my mind might be a little bit hard, at least they say it can be. So we are getting in coal over here, then we are exporting graphite over here. The graphite is being proliferated over there, so we actually have proliferated graphite on this belt. Now, in order to make plastic, oh, not those, plastic, please. Yes, there we go. In order to make plastic in all of these buildings, we are going to need 2 materials. We are going to need oil, and we are going to need the graphite. So we have both of them because we are treating the oil as a raw resource, remember, because we are only producing that in a central location, because otherwise we always have the hydrogen polluting our builds. So this will be an oil belt coming out over here, and that we are of course proliferating just in case it isn't already. And then this is going to wrap around all the way through here. So actually we are going to have oil on this belt. No, this is actually the graphite belt, but you get the point. We have oil over here, we have oil over here, and we have the graphite over here. And then we have an outgoing belt of plastic going through the middle. Where's the plastic? Plastic. There we go. And also plastic on the other side going out from these. And then of course we also need to make sure it can get out over here something like this. And then over here we are proliferating that plastic, and we are also of course going to be proliferating the other two items. So actually what we could do is remove this, even though it's on the correct line, so to speak, and proliferate those over here. Actually, if we want to be really... Let's see if we can do this. And there we go, something like this. Is this going to be an issue now? I don't think that's not going to be an issue in terms of clipping. Let me know if it does actually clip for you. That's not gonna work on the second line, is it? No, it's not. Can we move? Yeah, can we move it one more to the side? No, we can't. Oh, this is so annoying. But can we? Actually, yeah, we can. So what we can do is make this one line longer. And this is just me being a perfectionist, so hope you don't mind. Or you probably don't. You guys love your perfect builds. Because now what we can actually do is we can actually, well, at least we should be able to move it one more line like this. And like that. Now, if it's going to clip with the ILS, I'm going to cry. So let's try that out, but I don't think it is. Where's the belt? Might as well just put it in. There we go. Is that not connecting? Oh, one more. Hello? Slope too steep. Oh, why did you go down then? Stay up. There we go. Hey, it fits. Nice. And there we go. And that should fix the build, I think. Let's double check. So we have the coal going in. We have the oil going in. We are proliferating both of them. At least the coal will need to be proliferated. And we also are proliferating the intermediate graphite. Graphite is going in. Then we are collecting all the plastic. We are proliferating that over here. And there's actually one just missing. We might as well add in the last one just in case. And once again, I am just adding in the proliferators since we can anyway. Just in case it turns out that we haven't completely proliferated these items when we were building them in the other build. Because we are importing them straight from the source from another build. And if the power is low on that planet or whatever, once again, it might not be fully proliferated. And we do want to make sure that, especially resources like this, we are not wasting any nanotubes and things like that, especially the nanotubes. So these are being proliferated. They go in over here. They flip around. They are going over here. And then we are proliferating all the outgoing broadbands over here. And this should add up to 40 of them, making 5 per second. But of course with proliferation, so that means that we have and when I say 5 per second, of course keep in mind that we are producing 40, we have 40 assemblers producing at an 8-second ratio, so we need 8 assemblers to make 1 per second. We have 40 assemblers, so that's 5 times as much, so we are actually producing 5 particle broadbands per second. Proliferated with 25% is 1.25 times 5 is 6.25, exactly what we were intending. And that means we have, if we build this thing 6 times, sorry, no, 5 times, do my math, jeez. Then we should have a little bit over 1 belt full of particle broadband, which is far more than we're ever going to need for now, because 6 per second is already a lot. What you do want to do, by the way, and hey, here was my graphite. What you do want to do in this build initially is set the limit lower than 10,000. There is no scenario in which you are going to need 10,000 particle broadbands You can probably get away with just like something like 1500. This is not going to be producing at the speed that this is ever going to fill up if you ever actually need the broadband. So make sure that you don't, and make sure that you, of course, request your warpers, you request your proliferators. You don't need that many of these either, because this is not a high resource build. There's not a huge amount of stuff going in. You make sure that you request them before you actually start up the facility. And yeah, there you go. This is pretty much all there is to it, other than the fact that for some reason I flipped this belt around, so we need to make sure this is actually going in. All right, that means that we now only have to add in a few hundred sorters and some foundations, of course, because this is way too ugly to look at. So be right back and then we can look at the finished build. Okay, there we go. We have everything set up. We actually have some sunlight coming in as well over here, so that's nice. We have sorters, we have power, we have belts, we have foundations. I picked the lighter blue because we already used the darker blue. That's similar to this for the super magnetic rings, and I like to be able to distinguish between my builds, but that's just my personal preference. Let's see if this actually works. So let's put some coal on the belt. Let's put some oil on the belt. Let's also put some, let's make sure it's the correct one, not that really matters, I think. And crystal silicon and nanotubes on the belts. There we go. As you can see, we have the unproliferated coal coming in, being proliferated over here. And then the graphite is once again being proliferated over there. We have the oil coming in. It is already proliferated, but that just means we're not wasting anything here either, so it's not a big deal. It's not a re-proliferated or anything like that if it's already proliferated when it goes under. Now, let's see. We have the other materials coming in, apparently also already proliferated, working like intended. And then we have the plastic, and as you can see, a large part of our facility is already working. This entire row is working, and you can see the rest is still coming through. So you do actually need this large array of assemblers for the particle, what are they called? Particle broadband. That was the word. It looks like broadband. How could I not forget? How could I forget that? Anyway, yeah, so we have a nice amount coming in. Once again, make sure you set this to a lower minimum, just so you don't waste unnecessary materials anywhere in your build. Now, like I've said before, in order to have purple science, we needed the broadband, almost forgot it again, and processors. We have a lot of processors. We also have a nice build for processors, blueprint included, just in case. Fully upgraded, of course, etc, etc. And so if you need more processors than you actually have, you can place down another build for it. And then we also are going to need a way to process all of this science. So that will be our next little setup. I want to have a setup that is really balanced between all the different types of resources. So let's think a little bit ahead and try and set that up. Okay, I found a nice little spot here, and we have placed down an ILS because we want to be making 4 different types of sciences, as well as some warpers, of course, in order to export all of that stuff from this planet to wherever it needs to go. Now, in order to make blue science, we need the rings and the circuit boards. Done that. We need red science, it's graphite and hydrogen. We have plenty of hydrogen around, and we have graphite production up and running as well. We have the structure matrix yellow science, which is diamonds, as well as the titanium crystals. Now, the titanium crystals, the only place we are currently actually producing those is in the build that we made to rush to yellow science. So assuming you place down an ILS there by now to collect that output, you will actually be supplying a little bit less than what this build, strictly speaking, needs, but we will of course be upgrading our titanium crystal build for that. And by now you have probably so much produced that it, for at least for the next few hours, won't matter. So don't stress about making a specific build for that just yet. Then last but not least, processors and broadband going into the purple science production that we are able to produce over here. Now, in order to make that, what we are going to do is we are going to place down some science facilities, which are in this tab today, yes. And we are going to be placing 3 over there. And then we are going to be placing 3 more over here. We are going to leave room for 4 belts because we have 4 different inputs. And that's going to be something like this. There we go. And then we also have 4 different inputs on this side. And then last but not least, we are going to place another 3 lines of research facilities over here and over there. Or actually 2 lines of 3, I should say. Now, in order to supply all of that stuff with materials, what we want to do, and let's make sure we align the ILS to do so, is maybe take it 1 step further out. There we go. And then 1 more over here, something like this. Nice and aligned, nice on the grid, so that is beautiful. And we are going to be making the red science and blue science on this side. So this is going to be blue science and red science. And like this, which means that on this side, we actually don't need all of this stuff. But we do need the coils, we are going to need circuit boards, we are going to need graphite, where are you? As well as hydrogen, and we want to request all of this. And I really wish we could just like right click on this button or something to actually request this, because this is a little tedious, but okay. And if I missed a shortcut in the game somewhere after all of these hundreds of hours, which wouldn't surprise me honestly, let me know in the comments. So yeah, we have all of that stuff coming in, and the way we've placed this will allow us to do this. Actually going to bring it in a little further. Why am I doing that? Because this sometimes, depending on where you place this on the planet, could actually cause your stuff to clip, and we don't want to have that now, do we? Circuit boards, as well as graphite, which I forgot to actually click. There we go. And then we have hydrogen over there. Now, of course, we are going to need more than just the 3 of these, but for now, this is a lot more convenient to actually hook everything up, because we get huge towers of those things, and we want to be able to see what we're doing. Now, I am actually wondering if these things might be too close, and not too close in the sense that, yeah, like, if you stand under them, you can see that if we are building these up, these buildings will clip into the ILS, and personally I just don't like that. So what I am actually going to do, I'm going to move the entire build a little bit down just to avoid the clipping, and then we'll continue. Okay, so I moved everything with a few spaces, and yes, that will be definitely worth it, because we want to be building these up and we don't want them to clip with the ILS. And the last few things that we need are yellow science and purple science, which we are going to be creating over here. Now, of course, in order to make yellow science, you need some diamonds as well as titanium crystal. Now, remember that we already have a little bit of titanium crystal production on the other planet. It's in the Rush to Yellow Science build. Now, I hope you put an ILS there to kind of collect and distribute those items, but if you haven't, you should be able to just set this up and it should be collecting that. I don't actually know if I powered up my ILS. Apparently I did not. I'm sure it's there, and I'm sure there's crystals in it, but apparently we need to power this one up to actually make sure we are collecting them. So that is a thing that I hope you did remember. Then last but not least, we are going to need some processors, and probably not so much. We can actually reuse down the rest of this as well. It's not a big thing if there's more than that in this system, but it's never going to need more than this to be supplied at one time. Then we have the broadband, of course, as well. And let's set that down low as well. There we go. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We also can request some warpers over here because we have a slot left. Now, why am I not actually getting any broadband over here? That is probably to do with the fact that I might not have put drones in the build. Let's see, where is it? Where is my pretty little builds. Is this it? No, it's not. Now, the good thing is I can actually look for it by color. Now, if it wasn't so damn dark on this planet all the time, this would have been a lot easier. There we go. Yep, no drones. Let's fix that. And while we're at it, let's make sure we have the drones in our processor facility as well, because I might not have done that. Nope, there we go. More than 5 is probably going to be efficient. So then what we can do is the same thing as we did on the other side. Have this go down like that. We can have crystals over here like this. Some processors. There we go. And then some broadbands. Alrighty. Now, almost done. We also need 2 more outgoing belts, of course, for the yellow signs over here. And let's have that go in like that. And for the blue signs over here, let's have that go in like this. A few things that we do need to make sure we take care of. So we have proliferators over here. So what we can actually do, and that is also why I like leaving some room, is just to make sure that we're actually proliferating all the inputs, because this will definitely be worth proliferating, including the outputs, by the way. Let's make sure we actually align this. There we go. Because if you proliferate science, you get more hashes, so basically free science production. But of course, if you want to be making white science, you also want the extra stuff. So proliferating your science is, I mentioned this before, but it's really key to making sure you optimize your proliferation. It's one of the most valuable places to proliferate, basically. So let's make sure we do that. Now this is going to be too close, so let's make sure. Yeah, there we go. Let it go up and all the way through. So efficient, so easy. Very nice. And then there's another thing that we need to take care of. So we have warpers over here, but we didn't have space for warpers over here. But what you can do, if you have something supplying warpers anywhere close by, you can just output the warpers and put them in like this. And as soon as we unlock the actual ability to travel at warp speed with our logistic vessels, this will open up a slot for warpers, and if you're exporting them, it will automatically accept it. So it's basically a 6th slot for warpers. We don't need to do it the other way around, but because I like things being pretty, I'll just do it anyway, because this makes the build symmetric. It's completely a useless belt, assuming of course we have enough warpers, but doing that you could actually remove this, because this no longer has any use. So what else is going on in this build? Well, not much. It's just importing and exporting. You need only 80% of 6 per second science, so remember that you need about 4.8 of each, and we should have plenty of that for most of these items, with the exception of titanium crystal. I think we have a build that produces something like 3.5, something along those lines. So it will be slightly underproducing yellow signs, but like I said, I don't think you'll notice that at first, because we have the other facility up and running as well still. So yeah, let's put in some sorters, and then actually no, let's talk about the height of the buildings, because we want to be making perfect ratio builds. That means we need 24 blue science facilities, so that is this height if I count it correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be producing exactly 6 blue signs per second. Now for the red signs we're going to need 10, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And yes, those are big ass towers. But we wanted a super facility, so we have to build one. Now the yellow signs is really easy, because we actually need a tower of 13, and that's the maximum amount we can build, so don't have to count, just keep spamming until it's full. There we go. And then for the purple signs we are going to need 3 rows of 12, just slightly less. all we need to do is make sure we stop building one before we reach the cap. There we go. Now, if you really prefer, of course, you can make these builds equal height. But yeah, we were doing perfect ratio, so we are not going to do that. This is going to be producing exactly 6 signs per second for each of these 4 sciences. So all we're lacking now is sorters and foundations and power, not to forget. So let's fix that and meet back here. There we go. Completely up and running. As you can see, we have a nice disco effect of all the different colors of science coming in and being proliferated. We have our giant towers of science doing their job. All in all, I think this looks pretty awesome. Just one last problem. The science isn't actually going anywhere. So let's fix that with one of my favorite builds. If you've watched any of my previous playthroughs, you already know which one I mean, but it's worth just showing it to you once again. I'll build it and let's take a look. And there we go. We have our little science dome over here, which is basically a ring of science facilities requesting all the different types of science that we can currently produce with some solar panels put in to make sure we are not wasting any place that we can get a lot of power from. But we yet have to supply it, so let's unleash the drones. Look at them fly off. They are now going to collect all of the different types of research that we can make. And once we have that research going into our facility, you will see what I mean. And here they come. And the science will go into the facility, and then we have a nice little disco ball here of science going around, being supplied to all these stations. We are now researching like madness. And of course, the only downside of this is that we are missing out on one single ring of science, which is the green science. So we should definitely start working on that soon, so we can actually warp out of our system and continue to explore the rest of the universe. But for now, this will do. Of course, you can definitely scale up this build if you want more research, faster research, etc, etc. But all in all, I think this looks pretty good as is. And the speed of the research, once again, doesn't really matter because you will be able to do all of the research at this point while you're building all the other stuff. So don't worry about that too much. I hope you enjoyed this scientific episode, and I hope to catch you in the next one.